Good afternoon. Did I really just get one? One? Good afternoon? I saw a bunch of you in the lunchroom earlier. You know I have a little bit more energy than that. So anyway, who took part in our mock election during lunch? I got a couple. Really, it was only 5% of the population took part in the mock election, or the Elk Grove population took part in that mock election, which unfortunately is fairly representative of our current voting environment, which basically means I took a group of girls, there were 10 of them, and they were tentative about whether or not they wanted to come and vote, and I said, well, basically it means, if most of you don't, that the two of us standing here get to make all the decisions for you. But anyway, my name's Heidi Graham, and I'm a mom of kids about your age. I have a daughter who is a sophomore at Emerson College in Boston, and I have a son who's also a sophomore, but at Prospect High School. But I am also president of the local League of Women Voters. So who are we? We joke that we're the nonpartisan party animals. Haha, no, you didn't think that was funny? Okay, we amuse ourselves. But anyway, we are also a nonpartisan organization dedicated to making democracy work. You may have seen us in your hallways registering voters. Today we were here doing a mock election. Some of you may have seen this vote sticker floating around, or there's a stylus pen that says the vote is mightier than the pen. Those are gifts that we've given students on their 18th birthday to encourage them to vote. So I think voting is pretty important. I spend much of my time volunteering and a lot of my money, putting my money where my mouth is, to live up to the League motto, which is, we empower voters and we defend democracy. And that's women and men, it's old and young, and it's everyone in between. Which is why I guess I was asked to come here today and talk to you about the importance of voting. So why should you vote? Well, I thought about what I was like when I was in high school, rebel without a cause, and my reaction to some middle-aged white lady coming into school to tell me why I should vote. And I'm going to tell you I would have been in the back corner, slumped, passing notes to my friends, because yeah, I'm that old, it was before cell phones, saying how lame and boring this old lady was. So if you decide to tweet today about how lame and boring I am, I'm just going to ask you to tag us on Twitter at LWVAHBG. So, because any publicity is good publicity. But I digress. I decided that you guys did not need to listen to me. I know a lot of people your age, and I decided to text them all and ask them, why do you vote? Why do you think voting is important? And here are what some people your age have said about why they vote and why voting is important. The first text happened to be from a young man who admitted to me that he had never voted before. He said, personally, I find it hard to sift through biased info and make an objective, informed decision on who to vote for, especially when there's so much drama and unnecessary noise coming from those running, calling out other politicians rather than telling me what they'll do. With recent political changes, I think so many people want to disassociate from the government out of frustration. But this is the time we need to be present, especially young people, in the elections. We are shaping our future. So this young man understands that absolutely voting shapes your future. And yes, it can be overwhelming and daunting and confusing. And he realizes it's important enough to take a little bit of time to be informed and vote, just like you're doing today. But I'll also tell you, another plug, League can help you with that. If you follow us on social media or go to our webpage or come to any of our meetings, we actually do have an emerging leaders program for young people. But most of the rest of the texts were, yes, I vote and here's why. One person said, I think it's important as our civic duty. We're all lucky to live in a country with freedom of speech and many other liberties other people in the world aren't fortunate enough to have. So if the one thing we have to do is to keep it that way is to vote, it's well worth it. Well, I can agree with that. If I want to march this Saturday in the Women's March, and maybe some of you plan to march with me, I want that to be my protected right. There's still places in the world where citizens don't have those same freedoms. A few people texted me and said that they wanted to have representatives who share their same values. I believe it's important to be part of the political process, and it's also important for me to put people in office who I think are going to do the best job and make progress on the issues I care about. Or someone else said, voting is an important opportunity to be able to vocalize your beliefs. You can take it further by advocating or reaching out to your government officials, but voting is the bare minimum that I think should be done. The ability to vote is what sets the U.S. apart from so many other places. We have the freedom to participate to an extent in the government. And then finally, I vote because I want my representatives to value the same issues and concerns that I have as a citizen. And I actually feel that most people in office don't, so I want to change that. Well, I do know that through my work with League, our representatives do listen when we write and text and call and tweet to them. Some more than others. And so I make my choice on who I vote for based on how I think they listen to me. In fact, I've personally been able to meet with each and every one of my representatives, and most of them are actually reasonable people. The ones who I don't think are reasonable, well, you can guarantee that I'll be at the polls this November, casting a vote to remove them from office. One answer that I got from a young person was quite forward thinking. They said, I think that voting is important for young people in particular because the decisions being made now are going to affect us for our whole lives. Unlike older generations, and I'm pretty sure they were talking to me, as the old lady, we will deal with repercussions or enjoy the benefits of the decisions we make. And I have to agree with that. In our state, we are absolutely having to deal with things that were put into action when I was born. That's right, the pension crisis that you hear so much about. And if you haven't heard about the pension crisis, certainly you've heard your parents complain about their high taxes. Well, those are a direct result of the pension crisis, and the pension crisis has been difficult to manage in the state of Illinois because of an ill-conceived clause in our state's 1972 Constitution. I was born in 1970. So yeah, the decisions that are made by your representatives today, they will affect you for a long time. One text pointed to voting as helping them to be a better critical thinker and problem solver. I think that by voting, you're exposing yourself to topics and educating yourself on issues which make you not only more knowledgeable about the world you live in, but also a better problem solver. Well, both of these skills are important to being successful, period. I like this reason because it was local and it was concrete. If you complain about potholes, then vote for someone who worked to repair our streets. Yep, a lot of what we vote on and about absolutely affects our everyday life, like potholes in our city streets. In fact, at the earlier forum, your mayor of Elk Grove Village, he made the point that pretty much all of your everyday life, you turn on the lights, you turn on your faucet, that's all managed by your village local government. As a military brat, I often give the following reason myself, but I really liked hearing this come from someone half my age. I vote because it's important to exercise the right that others have fought for. It's important because it gives us a voice. My daughter's best friend, she texted this to me, made me really proud, and actually showed that she was listening to me for the most part. She said, I vote because it is my civic duty and responsibility. By participating in the democratic system, I help to guarantee its ability to function as an institution. On a different level, I find voting to be very important. I guess the best reason I can give is that the enemy of justice is inaction, not injustice. So I think it's important to participate if you want to live in a just society. And I love that because I too want to live in a just society. Which brings me to the last response. One of my neighbors happened to move to Florida, and her children attend Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School. As a mom, I cannot imagine what it would have been like to have children at that school on that day, much less be a student or a teacher. at that school the day of the deadliest school shooting in the United States history. Her daughter, who graduated last year, she gave this reason for voting. I vote because I personally experienced a school shooting that killed 17 of my classmates and teachers. I understand the importance of local elections like the school board, the governor, our state, the president, in a whole new way. I also vote because we live in a multicultural, multi-generational community. The elected officials need to better balance the diversity, age, gender, color, socioeconomic status of the people. And I want you to note that today, of the 8 officials who have chosen to come, most of them are white men. And where I do not vilify white men, I do believe we need more people of color and more women in elected office. So I hope that one of the reasons that I gave you and that these students texted me sticks with you. And I really hope you will. Thank you.